Slate gives our friends to the left a guide on how to deny all the allegations that came from the Hunter Biden laptop. So we'll go over some of that in the Christmas season and let you know how it is that you are supposed to deny reality, even though it's out there freely available to look at. So we'll talk about that and what that means in our little tip to the holiday season. In other news, Volodomir Zelensky touches down in Washington, has a meeting with Joe Biden, which we'll watch some video of, and is set to be meeting with Congress probably right about, I'd say now. So we'll talk about that and what that means, and his attire, which of course he has to look like he's in that military sweatshirt just coming right off the front lines. So we'll go over that and where we go from there and what happens with that. More breakdown of the $1.7 trillion omnibus bill, what's going to happen with that, and on top of all that, Biden saying that yes, he is now going to be coming out and refilling the strategic petroleum reserves with gas that is supposed to be coming and going to you at this point, but we'll talk just a bit about that and where we go. And Elon Musk says that yes, he will abide by the poll. Musk is stepping down as the Twitter CEO, even though he's still going to own the site. We'll talk a bit about who he plans to come back and tap, which he has not given a confirmation to yet. I've got some ideas, and what this means for the site. It is going to be all this and more. Merry Christmas, everybody. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. In fields where they lay, keeping their sheep, on a cold winter's night that was so deep, in spite of the fact that that's close to the equator and it probably wasn't really all that cold at the time. But yes, we are getting down to the point where we celebrate the birth of our Lord and Savior. So get ready for that. And we do have some Christmas stuff to go over here with that today, as well as Slate telling us what it is that you're supposed to be telling your family when they want to talk about the Hunter laptop, and how you get around and getting your conservative uncle angry so he can go then and get out there and call him in for red flag violations here. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about a bit about what's going on with Zelensky, and we don't have a final story on that yet, so do keep that in mind. But we'll be talking about what we do know so far on that as he addresses Congress again, probably right about now. And I mean, I got one from the Jerusalem Post, so not green check verified, but we'll be talking about possibly what this could mean for relations and what could happen with the war going forward. We got a lot of stuff to go over here today, so we'll get right into it. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, Tweets by Brit, the No Gimmicks Podcast, Mr. Behavior, and more. So go check out all that great programming. People who are out there looking to provide you news and commentary and lifestyle from the common man for the common man. That is right. That is our major goal, is to get you a better news experience where the people who are talking to you about what's happening in the world have had to make some of the same decisions that you do, and these decisions that are being made by our socio-political and rich elites affect people like us in the same way that affect people like you. So we'll be talking about that. Make sure you go check out all those programs anyway. They are great people to get your news from and great people to hang out with. So that's what we're going to see coming off of that. And let's get down into the finance for the morning here. Looking in at the Dow to start with today. The Dow spent the day up on a winning streak so far. 33,370, 648 is the final close for the Dow. That is up 526.74 or 1.6% on the day. And it does look like it just kind of popped off in the beginning of the day and held steady throughout the rest of the day. So we will see what happens with the futures and where that goes and talk about what happened with that. Unfortunately, we can't do our regular Investors Business Daily episode today because, well, I made some commentary both in my Discord and the Off Hours Discord because I really can't say it on YouTube. But yeah, I had some choice words for IBD today, given the fact that I subscribed to them and they still lock me out of articles. So, well, if you're going to treat me like that, then you're going to get the choice words. That's going to just be the end of it, end of story, because, yeah, I'm not hugely happy with that. But that's what we see coming from that. Let's grab one from Bitcoin, which is somewhat steady today. It's on a decline, but it's on a slow decline. The Bitcoin closing out today at 98.40, down about 0.5%, at 16,798.70. And again, I think that some of what's holding this right now is that there are people out there that want Bitcoin as a gift. I'm one of those people. If you got Bitcoin and you're worried about it being volatile, I will hold it for you. You might not get it back, but I will hold your Bitcoin for you. I will hold your Shiba Inu for you. I will hold your Doge. I will hold your Ethereum. I will hold it all. I like Bitcoin. That's not something I'm going to use as my regular day-to-day currency, but if you've got it and you don't want it because you think it's too volatile, I will take it. But that's what we see for that. And the gas prices around Madison. Now, the gas prices here have gone up. And it looks like in Madison they are still at this point holding somewhat steady. The Emeco actually dropped on the Isthmus a little bit down to 260. Going into the Isthmus is at 280. 280 seems to be just about the going rate all around the Madison area, but we may see a different story tomorrow when some of the various different stations catch up with what's happening because, yeah, it went up 10 cents here where I am today. Between the time I went to work and the time I got home from work, actually, I looked at the same station because it's right over there in the corner, that direction, over there in the corner. And yeah, from 279 to 289 within the span of the business day. So it's coming. And some of this is going to be because of what's happening with the strategic oil reserves. But we'll see what's happening with that. We will start our finance here with CNBC because, of course, no IBD today. Those fun people. And again, I'm not going to say the stuff that I said in the Discord. But from CNBC, excuse me. I swear I'm going to be the last person at work to get sick, and it's probably going to happen if it's not there already. Dow closes up 500 points, lifted by upbeat earnings, strong consumer confidence data. From Samantha Subin and Tanaya Makil. Stocks jumped on Wednesday, rising for a second day after upbeat earnings reports from two bellwethers raised hope that corporate earnings may be better than feared, even with a potential recession. The Dow gained 526.74 or 1.6 to finish at 33,376.48. The S&P surged 1.49 to settle at 38,78.44, while the Nasdaq jumped 1.54 to end at 10,709.37. We sort of oversold, and I think the market was looking for an excuse to rally, and the Nike and FedEx numbers provided that, said Stan Staval, chief investment strategist at CFRA Research. I really question, however, if this is something that's going to be long-standing. Nike surged 12% after beating Wall Street's expectations for quarterly earnings and revenues. The results lifted other retail stocks. The sports apparel maker also showed progress in its attempt to clear its way through inventory, posting a decline over the previous quarter. Meanwhile, FedEx gained 3.4% after reporting earnings per share that beat estimates. The company also shared a slew of cost-cutting plans. Better than expected, consumer confidence data for December, which jumped to the highest level since April, also boosted investor sentiment. With the end of 2022 in sight, the three major averages are on pace to snap a 3-year win streak and post their worst year since '08. The Dow was down 8.15% for the year and 3.5% this month, while the S&P has shed 18.63% and 4.94% respectively. The Nasdaq fell, and the Nasdaq's not a big index, but that's still significant. The Nasdaq dumped 31.55% in 2022 and 6.62% in December. Earnings season continues before the Christmas holiday, with Micron reporting after the bell. So that's what we see coming from the markets for the day. But I wanted to talk just a bit about gift buying, because I do think that is important. So let's look at that for just a moment here. From Bloomberg, Americans are buying less useless stuff for Christmas. Now, this is an op-ed, so the opinions that are expressed here are the opinions of Jessica Carl, the op-ed writer, and not necessarily the opinions of Bloomberg, or coming out to the people presenting this, Turns of Pages Productions, Contemporary, or your host, Jay Edgar. But I wanted to look at this for just a moment because one of the things, and that's going to be one of the things that we see as we fall into the Christmas season and decide how our Christmas season and our economy is going to look, is what parents do for their kids, what people do for their loved ones in this wonderful holiday of giving that we call Christmas. So let's read what Jessica Carl has to say, in its partiality at least, on Nobody Eats the Fruitcake. I can't believe I'm about to admit this, but last December I willingly paid $26.36 for this t-shirt featuring various iterations of Pete Davidson's face. Why? It was a gift from my sister. I mainly bought it as a joke, but she hasn't worn it at all, so the joke is on me, I guess. When Christmas rolls around, most Americans observe the unfortunate tradition of buying boatloads of pointless discretionary items for their loved ones year in and year out. We fill our carts with the most absurd gifts, from customized potato faces to calendars featuring the world's greatest mullets. Speaking of goofy calendars, I mentioned my cousin, the campground owner, before because, well, my parents camped there, and when I was living down in the south part of the state, down by Janesville, it was closer and quicker for me to get to see them when they were there for the weekend and I was off for the weekend than it was for me to come all the way up here, especially with gas being $6 a gallon. We did have to make some trade-offs somewhere. But I was over there one day. I think this was before the gas prices really spiked. It was when they were still on the upswing, but it was before they really spiked. And I was in the shop. I actually think this was on the close season, now that I think about it. I think this was in winter of last year, so about this time last year. Might have been a little bit after, because I think it was after the first of the year, but I think my dad was coming up there and I was bringing him something, but I was there talking with my cousin, waiting for my dad to get there, and just kind of looked over at his wall, and I wasn't sure what I was looking at, but I saw a lot of dogs, and I thought to myself, man, this photographer really caught the dog in an awkward position, and I don't know why they put it on the calendar. It was the dog was taking a crap. And I looked at that, I said my cousin's name, obviously I'm not going to say that now, but I said, hey, did the photographer do this on purpose, or was this just an unfortunate accident? And he said, no, that's my brother for you. He decided that I needed to have this entire calendar, and he pulled it down and showed me the front of it, and it is a 12-month calendar of dogs crapping. I don't know where he gets this kind of stuff from, but it's really weird. And yes, it hung on the wall in the shop for a long time. Luckily, Tyler Cohen writes, the deluge of Baby Yoda merch, novelty finger puppets, and USB milk frothers may be subsidizing as Americans become stingier with each season. In 1999, the typical American shelled out $1,300 on holiday gifts. In 2020, that amount dropped to $800. Charitable giving is still strong, so it's probably not that we're becoming less generous. A likelier theory is that most people already have all the stuff they could possibly need. Your friend only needs one set of noise-canceling headphones, one air fryer, one Dyson Airwrap, so you end up just buying them a basket of gold-wrapped pears and some fruitcake because everyone's got to eat at some point, right? Sustenance, people. Of course, American spending habits remain somewhat of a mystery 3 years into a global pandemic. On the one hand, the savings rate is lower than it was when Flo Rida did that song about apple-bottom jeans. But at the same time, our pandemic cash mountain has grown by more than $800 billion. Carl Smith suggests that this is probably because we've been cashing out of stocks and bonds to stay ahead of a market meltdown. All in all, there's still a record amount of dough in your checking accounts, likely enough to support consumer spending well into 2023. Let's just hope that we stop buying Pete Davidson swag and start buying gifts our loved ones actually need. Faye Flam suggests rapid COVID tests. Absolutely not. Now, with this incredibly liberal article coming from liberal stronghold Bloomberg, which is Ron Helton's favorite magazine from his favorite politician, we do see, when we parse through and look through all the propaganda that's here, we actually do look at this and see what it is that we should be paying attention to. Now, yes, people are getting thriftier, people are getting a little bit stingier as we go, but a lot of this is the fact that people don't have the money to go run out and buy the super expensive gifts for everybody. And we did see some of this in 2008. I've got this feeling that our friend here, Miss Carl, is probably too young to remember what was going on in 2008. What would you say that this girl looks like? Maybe late 20s? Maybe 30. But I doubt it. I would actually probably even say as young as 27. So the last time we were going through this in 2008, she was maybe, 13, 14? Probably still got a generous gift from her parents because she was rich enough to get herself into a position that she could report for Bloomberg. But didn't really see what was going on off of this. But on average, the average American family, yes, is spending a lot less right now on Christmas because there's just not that much there. And yes, as she mentioned, the big gift at this point may be food, sustenance, or even something that you might not get yourself. If you're just buying for yourself for sustenance, maybe getting that fruitcake, that little bit of candy, or whatever it is that you enjoy eating but may not be able to budget for. So, the economy has hit, and it's hit Christmas too, and hey, maybe Joe Biden really is the Grinch that stole Christmas, but I mean, it's still going to be there, and the reason for the season is still with it. But American consumerism may be suffering because of what our government's decided to do for the last 5 years. Let's get into we're not going to get into the main news of the day. The main news of the day is the Zelensky stuff, but I got a couple more here to talk about before we get into that. A little bit of what's going on here and all around me, coming from CNN. A once-in-a-generation winter storm will impact nearly every state and cripple Christmas travel. From Aya Alamorosi and Jennifer Gray. A major winter storm, excuse me again, a major winter storm could blast cold air and will impact nearly every state and bring the National Weather Service is calling a once-in-a-generation type event that will cripple travel on some of the busiest travel days of the year. Man, it would be really helpful if I could actually read and get all the words in all the time. The strengthening storm will bring more than a foot of snow and possible blizzard conditions to the Midwest, as the Weather Service warns of life-threatening wind chills for millions. More than 90 million people are under winter weather alerts, and more than 87 million are under wind chill alerts. The alerts stretch across 37 states, dipping as far south as the Texas-Mexico border. The number of people under winter alerts and wind chill alerts has grown to over 100 million people, or roughly a third of the U.S. population, according to the National Weather Service. The cold will stick around for the Christmas weekend, making the coldest Christmas in roughly 40 years for portions of the plains in the Midwest. The storm will strengthen over the northern plains through the day as heavy snow falls across much of the Rockies, the northern plains, and into the Midwest. Slick roads will lead to travel headaches and airport delays through places like Minneapolis, Omaha, and Rapid City. This system will bring 5 to 9 of light fluffy snow across the region, with the highest amounts just north and west of the Twin Cities. Said the Weather Service office in the Twin Cities, while the snow will steadily fall across the region, the high winds won't kick in until Thursday. Denver will go from a high of 47 Wednesday to 10 below zero by daybreak on Thursday. That would be the city's coldest day in 32 years, according to the Weather Service. Cheyenne, Wyoming recently dropped 32 degrees in just 8 minutes. Temperatures outside the Denver metro will drop drastically once the front passes through the next couple of hours. By sunrise, the temperature is expected to be around 10 below, and gusty north winds will create a wind chill of minus 25. The high temperature tomorrow will likely not make it above zero. A wind chill warning is in effect, as well as winter weather advisory. Several inches of snow will make it for difficult travel late this afternoon through early Thursday. Thursday will be the most difficult day for travel. The storm will be hitting the Midwest extremely hard, with heavy snow and strong winds. Western Minnesota will face not only blizzard conditions, but potentially deadly wind chills Thursday and Friday. Whiteout conditions expected during that time will travel becoming very difficult or impossible, said the Weather Service. This could be life-threatening if you're stranded with wind chills in the 30 below to 45 below zero range. Chicago could also face blizzard conditions with winds gusting as high as 50 miles an hour, with 2 to 4 inches of snow forecast. Overall, concern continues to increase in the quick development of dangerous conditions Thursday afternoon, with potential significant impacts to the evening peak snow travel window, warned the Weather Service office in Chicago. Additionally, strong winds may knock out power lines in the Midwest, especially in areas where heavy snow fell last week and is already weighing down tree branches. This will leave millions finding a way to stay warm as the temperatures plummet to well below freezing. Snow could fall as far south as Jackson, Mississippi, Memphis, and Nashville, in Tennessee, and even Birmingham, Alabama on Thursday. Little to no accumulation is expected for most of the southern cities, however, Nashville could pick up about an inch of snow. In anticipation of what will be a week of travel nightmares, United, American, Delta, Southwest, and JetBlue have issued travel waivers for dozens of airports across the country, from the south to the northeast, because in addition to snow covering roadways, low visibility can make air travel dangerous. And on Friday, the storm is expected to become a bomb cyclone Thursday evening into Friday. A bomb cyclone is when a storm rapidly intensifies and drops 24 millibars, a term used to measure atmospheric pressure in 24 hours. The storm is expected to reach the pressure equivalency of a Category 3 hurricane as it reaches the Great Lakes, with the Weather Service describing the strength of a once-in-a-generation event. This is a case in which snow totals may not tell the whole story. Even small snow amounts, when combined with very strong wind gusts and plummeting temperatures, can cause poor visibility and slick spots on the roads, and sudden arrival of these conditions can increase the danger, the Weather Service explained. The storm will be over the Great Lakes on Friday and continue to produce heavy snow across much of the Midwest. Portions of Michigan could pick up more than a foot of snow by Friday, making travel impossible at times. Blizzard warnings are in effect for parts of the Dakotas, Montana, Minnesota, Iowa, Indiana, Michigan, where travel conditions will become difficult to impossible as the storm peaks Thursday into Friday. Major cities like Chicago, Kansas City, St. Louis, Twin Cities, and Detroit are under winter storm warnings for heavy snow and near blizzard conditions. So, as far as this goes, when I look at what's happening here, now we've been all over the map, and I actually don't think it's going to get bad here as far as the snow goes. I think we're going to probably get maybe an inch or two here. The wind, I don't know if it's going to do anything, but they are talking life-threatening wind chills, that's correct. I think it's honestly going to be too cold to snow. And this is me just kind of looking through and experiencing this for most of my life. understanding how the weather systems go and everything else like that. Once it gets below 10, it's really hard to snow. It can still happen, it does, but it's a lot harder to do so, and the snow tends to be light, fluffy, and airy, and if you do get down to that point where it's coming down light, fluffy, and airy, you get the winds like this, it just kind of blows away at some point. Usually staying off the roads, but we went from being a 14-inch snowfall in the area to like 1 inch predicted, and we will see what happens with that. I have no idea. It was snowing when I left. Well, it wasn't snowing yet when I left work, but by the time I got to the Quick Trip, and I've got a very short commute, it was snowing and starting to stick to the windshield. So we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll be doing a impromptu broadcast on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day because I can't go anywhere. We'll see. In other weather-related news, well, not weather-related news, but natural disaster-related news, coming from USA Today, 2 dead and 12 injured after magnitude 6.4 earthquake rocks parts of Northern California. From Natalie Nesa Alund in Orlando, Mayorquin. At least 2 people died and 12 were injured after a magnitude 6.4 earthquake rocked Northern California early Tuesday, local authorities said. The Temblor, which is the strongest earthquake the area has seen in years, also damaged infrastructure and cut off powers to tens of thousands of homes and businesses around the Humboldt County, about 250 miles north of San Francisco. A local emergency was declared by Humboldt County Sheriff William Honsall Tuesday night due to widespread damages in the county. Following the county's declaration, California Governor Gavin Newsom proclaimed a state of emergency to support emergency response. The Humboldt County Sheriff's Office said 2 people died as a result of medical emergencies during or just following the earthquake. Tuesday's fatalities marked the first deaths stemming from an earthquake in California since 1 person died in 19 during a 7.1 magnitude quake that rocked the city of Ridgecrest in the northern Mojave Desert region. So probably somewhere that I've played in Fallout New Vegas. The U.S. Geological Survey said the quake struck at 2:34 a.m. Pacific Time in Pacific Ocean waters, about 7.5 miles west of Ferndale at a depth of just over 16 miles. The city is about 19 miles south of Eureka, near the California and Oregon state line. State officials said they closed one bridge into Ferndale that was damaged. The U.S. Geological Survey warned of many aftershocks, including some that could reach magnitude 4. More than 80 aftershocks were recorded in the area on the USGS website Tuesday, most of which were less than magnitude 4. So, we're still getting a little bit of tremor coming off of this. It does look like this did happen on land, is where the epicenter was. No, they're saying it was in the water, so I was thinking just kind of looking at the center of the rings, but I don't know if anybody that I know was affected by this. I think this was too far away for anybody that I know to be affected by it. But yeah, we were getting shakes, very, very light shakes all the way up in Oregon for this one. So, but it does look like there were some elderly residents who died of medical emergencies, not necessarily falling down or buildings falling on them. So that's good. It does look like we are getting better at saving ourselves when earthquakes like this happen, but that is what we have coming for that. F in the chat for the people who passed away for that. And we will continue to watch and see what happens there. Now, in the Christmas spirit, before we go in and talk about what was happening with Zelensky, which I know, again, is the main news of the day, I did want to touch on this one here from Slate. And by the way, this is 2 days in a row that I've used Slate. I do swear that I'm not turning into a liberal by reading Slate. It just seems to be what came up for this. And my friend Grant likes to aggregate some of the news as well, so I've been using his Discord to do some aggregating here. 'Tis the season to debunk your family's Hunter Biden conspiracy theories. From Molly Olmstead. 7 years have passed since Trump began his presidential campaign, so Slate readers have likely figured out their own methods of avoiding, deflecting, or gently participating in Trump-related political discussions with their families at the holidays. The Hunter situation, though, presents a new challenge simply because of the sheer breadth and complexity of the naughty behavior. Santa Claus reference. That was a bad joke, Slate, and you should be ashamed of that. That the president's black sheep son has been accused of being involved in, or has thoroughly been proven to be involved in, below a guide to addressing and understanding how conservative relatives Hunter-related concern. So, Hunter's under the bus, and I've got this feeling that Joe's not going to follow very much behind. I really do. He got through the midterms, he defeated the evil orange man, and he got the DOJ up there that's going to go and put him in prison. He's outlived his usefulness, he's old, and he's not giving them the stuff that they want. So, I've really been tuning this out. What's the gist of the Hunter-Biden chatter? Okay, so there are a few things going on. To take a step back, in 2019, the Trump campaign and prominent conservative figures began arguing that Joe Biden, while he was vice president under Obama, offered Ukraine $1 billion in aid in a quid pro quo deal, or alternately, that Biden had pressured the country to remove its top prosecutor from office in order to protect the Ukrainian national gas company, Burisma, from domestic investigation. By the way, both of those things happened together. I want to remind everybody that both of those things happened together. Now, three things are true. Hunter was on the board of Burisma starting in 2014, and until 2019, as vice president, Biden had pushed Ukraine to remove its top prosecutor in 2015, and he had used the $1 billion in aid as leverage to get that done. But that's because the prosecutor was widely seen as corrupt by the international community, much like Zelensky was before Russia showed up on Ukraine's doorstep. Other Western leaders had also called for the prosecutor's ouster before Biden got involved, and Biden was, according to the Washington Post, carrying out a policy developed at the State Department and coordinated with the European Union and the International Monetary Fund. Furthermore, one of the reasons the prosecutor, Viktor Shokin, was seen as corrupt was in part because he didn't play well with the Western audience. We were reading what Slate has to say, not what actually is happening. Was in part because he had failed to investigate allegations of embezzlement and other wrongdoings at Burisma. It's fair to say to Uncle Bob, or whoever else needs to hear it, that claims that Joe Biden protected Burisma to safeguard his son's interests are politically motivated and constitute misinformation. If the vice president had been trying to shield his son or enrich his son in this particular circumstance, he chose the exact wrong way to do it, in spite of the fact that he blocked a prosecutor from looking into his son or looking into the company his son was working for. Okay, but my Aunt Maria is saying something about the New York Post. Yes, but before we get there, in 2020, before the presidential election that year, a 64-page document purported to be the work of an intelligence firm called Typhoon Investigations began circulating on the internet. That document claimed that Hunter had business deals with China's Communist Party, which is widely known, common knowledge, or companies closely associated with the party that supported China's intelligence and business interests over those of the U.S. Newt Gingrich and other public figures promoted the report, but that document was a fake. Its name, author, and purported firm do not really exist. And yet we have the Hunter emails. Still, Hunter Biden has had some business interests in China, and there are legitimate arguments to be made that those dealings could have created the appearance of conflict of interest for the elder Biden. More on that later. Then, in October of 2020, the New York Post published a story featuring emails and other materials recovered from a laptop that the paper said had belonged to Hunter. Those materials included a couple of emails, 74 emails, that were misread to imply that Joe Biden had been involved in some of his son's... What? I read the emails, dude. To imply that Joe Biden had been involved in some of his son's business deals in Ukraine and China in a way that would have been politically corrupt, or at least a conflict of interest. Okay, you're either trying to gaslight people, or you didn't read the emails. Later, the New York Times did verify these emails and other materials, or at least a fair amount of them were authentic. But at the time, many in the media worried these emails had been hacked, stolen, or doctored, or weren't real at all. Twitter responded by banning any links to the New York Post article, citing a policy against allowing the publication of hacked materials and private information. It then locked the account of the White House press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, when she promoted the article, and then took down the New York Post account. Late in the day, facing an intense backlash, Twitter began relaxing those policies. It lifted the restrictions on posting and sharing the links the following day. No, it did not. That is a lie. It did not lift them until after the election, though it continued to ban the New York Post account for another couple of weeks, which again took us to after the election, all to set off a bigger debate. For a lot of conservatives, it was proof of an increasingly popular claim that big tech companies had come to distrust were engaged in censorship. The controversy thus came to be less about Hunter and more about the belief that allegations against him were covered up. That's what the most recent Hunter Biden brouhaha has been about. On December 2nd of this year, journalist Matt Taibbi published Twitter's internal correspondence about the laptop story, which he framed as proof that Twitter had done the bidding of the Democrats. They did. I've read the Twitter files. And suppressed bad news about Hunter Biden. They did. Decisions at Twitter about the laptop story were made well before Elon Musk took over the company, and it was Musk's team that gave the internal documents to Taibbi in order to purportedly demonstrate the previous regime's bias. Media outlets had previously reported on Twitter's decision and reversal in 2020. Okay, so why does my cousin Peter talk about the Hunter Biden emails as if they're so damning? In a 2017 email that was uncovered by the laptop dump, a business associate of Hunter's used the phrase 10 held for H for the big guy in an email about a partnership that Hunter and his uncle Jim were forming with the Chinese energy conglomerate called CEFC China Energy. One of the partners in the deal, Anthony Bobolinsky, said that H was Hunter and the big guy was Joe. That wouldn't be great. A former vice president and future president getting in on a business deal with Chinese energy company, except there's no real evidence that he did. Except the person who was involved in the transaction said, yes, that was for him. The draft agreement that circulated afterward did not mention Joe, nor did the signed company agreement. Other business associates have said that Joe Biden was not involved in the discussions. You really think they were going to leave a paper trail? Are you dumb? The second allegedly incriminating email was called the Smoking Gun email by the New York Post. In an April 2015 message, a Burisma executive thanked Hunter for giving an opportunity to meet your father, reportedly at a dinner that had taken place the previous day. This exchange occurred before the firing of the Ukrainian prosecutor, so it excited Trump world because that appeared to prove that Joe Biden had lied when he said during the 2020 presidential campaign that he hadn't known about Hunter's work in Ukraine, but we don't know for sure that the Burisma exec actually did attend that dinner. All right. So everything that we've read in this article is a lie. That's pretty well obvious at this point. But one of the problems here, and they go on and this is a step-by-step. And I don't know if some left-winger that's going to be going to a Christmas dinner with conservatives is going to read this entire thing. They've usually got a 10-second attention span. But part of the problem with this, and a big part of my problem with this, is how I conduct, like when I do contemporary, I do expect my audience members to go out and do their own research on things. I give a framework, and I do give links and things for people to go and check in, but I don't read the entire article, and I don't tell you what it is to think. I give you my opinion on things. But this is Slate coming out here and writing a script for people to come back out, and I hate to say it, but this is them admitting the fact that their readership is just too dumb to function. They have to come back in and hold your hand and say, oh, this is how you do this is how you react. Be a good little boy, go back and tell Aunt Gladys and Uncle Peter and everything else that they're rotten, evil Nazis because they believe all this stuff, and here's your proof, and just remember, it's questionable. We don't have proof of any of this stuff. Which they don't need if they're coming to an accusation of a conservative. And like most things that come out of the pages of Slate, this is a simple, honest, self-serving bullshit story. Plain and simple. But if you want to take a look at this one, I'm actually going to put this into the Discord. So you can see what it is that they're going to try to come back out here and tell you to go tell your relatives. I'm going to put this in I don't know if I think my friend put this in his Discord already, and that's where I got it from. Now that I think about it, now that I've hit the post button. But we'll put this one in general chat and see what the Ads World audience wants to say about it as well. Alright. Let's talk Zelensky. From the Daily Wire to start off with here, Ukraine's Zelensky meets with Biden, will address Congress in first foreign trip since Russian invasion. From Tim Pierce. Volodomir Zelensky met with U.S. President Joe Biden on Wednesday and will later address a joint session of Congress in D.C. in a gesture symbolizing U.S. support of Ukraine in its war against Russia. Zelensky traveled to Washington as Congress contemplates sending roughly $45 billion more to Ukraine to support its military and economy as the war enters its 10th month. Yeah, they're really winning, aren't they? Joint session is happening right now. Let's see. The trip to the nation's capital is Zelensky's first outside his country since Russian invasion began on February 24th. And if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you. It is honor to be by your side in united defense against what is brutal war being... Oh wait, no, that's Biden, not Zelensky. Although, one is really the other. It's an honor to be by your side in the united defense against what is a brutal war that's being waged by Putin, man. Come on. Biden said from the Oval Office, according to CNN. The Ukrainian people continue to inspire the world. Zelensky offered thanks to Biden and the U.S. for its support against Russia. I understand that we have very important topics. We discussed them. Everything, so much challenge in Ukraine, in Europe, in world, and from energy to situation on battlefield, Zelensky said. But first of all, really, all my appreciation from heart of Ukrainians, all Ukrainians, from our nation. White House Press Secretary Token Diversity Hire said in a statement late Tuesday that the Ukrainian president's trip will underscore the United States' enduring commitment to Ukraine. 300 days ago, Russia launched a brutal... Wait, no. That's Diversity Hire. We've got to do the read off the script and don't let the eyes come up. 300 days ago, Russia launched a brutal assault against Ukraine. In response, no questions yet, no. President Biden rallied the world to support the people of Ukraine as they defend their sovereignty and territorial integrity, Diversity Hire said. During the visit, President Biden will announce a significant new package of security assistance, your taxpayer dollars, by the way, to help Ukraine to defend itself against Russian aggression. The visit will underscore the U.S. steadfast commitment to supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes, including through the provision of economic, humanitarian, and military assistance. In June, Biden pledged to continue supporting Ukraine as long as it takes, man, to beat Russian President Vladimir Putin. I don't know how it's going to end. I know how it's going to end. It's going to end with American boots on the ground. In another 20-year proxy war. But it will not end with a Russian defeat of Ukraine in Ukraine, man. Come on. All right, let's talk about what's happening here. Now, I've been very, very open about my opinions on the situation in Ukraine. You know. I'm preaching to the choir here with this one. I don't think that Putin even wants Kiev or anything west of the Donbass region, because there's no strategic advantage to it. The Ukraine wants to join NATO. They've got the buffer right now that separates NATO from Russia via Ukraine. And if Vladimir Putin takes Ukraine, he's suddenly butted up against NATO in the form of Poland. Something he's never wanted to begin with. I mean, hell, Zelensky killed 2 people in Poland to try to make it look like Russia was trying to go back and take the entire country. But the interest has really been Crimea and the Donbass region, with a little bit of shelling coming off of here to try to drive the point home. But there's never really been an attempt to occupy anything west of the Donbass region. Congress is currently giving Ukraine $45 billion in aid as part of a roughly 400,000-page spending package. If the additional funding is approved, the U.S. total aid to Ukraine will be more than $100 billion. So, he is there. He did the meeting already. This is him getting out of the limo to go back and meet with them to begin with. And of course, he's got to be in his military color uniform, like in the sweatshirt, like he just came up off the front lines. Don't you believe that he's out there in the front fighting the front lines, you guys? Gregory Rebel says he's going for that "I'm just in from the war" look. A lot of people are out there. History only remembers the victors. Listen close. The thumping sound is artillery. Which, as much of this has been a Hollywood set, I don't believe that. But let's watch.
Historic things. Yeah, that's right. Пане президенте, з яким результатом ви плануєте поїхати в Вашингтон? Пане президенте! Пане президенте, з якими результатами плануєте поїхати з Вашингтона?
And back-turner Biden with no questions. Now, again, I'm not going to go as far as Benny Johnson does in this one and say that he should have been in a suit. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if I went to the White House, I probably would wear a suit because I like suits, but I definitely wouldn't look like I just came from camera, especially if I was leaving from Wisconsin to go down there. I would not look like I had just come from camera, like what I look like right now, to the White House. That would not be a thing. And if I drive, it's probably about the same amount of time for me to get from here to the District of Columbia, maybe a little bit more. But what I'm saying here is I doubt that Zelensky flew commercial. I've got this strong feeling that Zelensky did not fly a commercial. But let's have a look at how long it takes to get from Kiev to the United States. Kiev to Dulles Airport. Yeah, travel restricted. No, I don't want to sign in. We couldn't find any. Okay. Let's go to Poland. What's a major city in Poland? All right, let's go from Warsaw to Washington. Frédéric Chopin. Because Expedia will give me a flight, a travel time. Okay, so there are no direct flights, it doesn't look like. But the average that we're seeing here is probably about 12 and a half hours, according to Expedia, to get from Warsaw. Which means that Homie was on a plane. No, it's more than that. It's like between 15 and 17. So, 15 to 17 hours in a plane. Dude couldn't throw a change of clothes on at least? Maybe a button-up shirt? Again, I'm not saying that he's got to be in Armani, although he's got the money for it, given what's been laundered through the United States into him. But a little bit better? Something? Maybe something at the hotel? No, he's got to look like he's coming right off the front lines. And again, he's playing a part. And he really is. But some of the other things that came off of this, of course, Gregory Rebel says he's going for that I'm just in from the war look. F off says at this point he's playing a part. And then Toto, listen close, that thumping sound is artillery. So let's listen close and see what that thumping sound is.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні присутні, шановні панове офіцери, військові, наші герої. Маю честь бути сьогодні тут. Хочу привітати вас, подякувати, кращих нагородити і дещо попросити. Перш за все хочу вас привітати, особливо тих, у кого є діточки. Вчора був День Святого Миколая. Вважаю, що ваше сонце – це наші діти. Сяяли саме для вас, щоб вони вас мотивували обов'язково вижити і захищати ваші сім'ї, наші сім'ї, всю нашу державу. І це значить майбутнє ваших дітей. Я хочу вам подякувати за те, що ви зберегли найголовніше – землю, бажання жити, Україну, наш прапор, наші кольори. Ви абсолютно героїчні люди. Я хочу вам сказати, тут на Донбасі ви захищаєте всю Україну. Тому що після Донбасу вони все це зроблять і на інших містечках, в інших містечках нашої держави.
There is no artillery going on in this track. All I hear is the crappy audio track that's going on in the background because this is a heavily produced piece. You can't hear anything over the music going on in the background there. There is not artillery going on in the background. That's a lie. I didn't listen to this video beforehand either, by the way. I commented on it, saying, yeah, and Spielberg and others got millions for recreating that sound for television audience over the decades, which they have. It's not hard to edit in the sound of artillery in the background, if that's even there, but all I hear is just pieces of the music score going on in the background. What a maroon. All right, let's talk more about Zelensky. Biden and Zelensky put their united front on display after a historic White House meeting. From Kevin Liptak and Megan Vasquez. U.S. President Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky displayed a united front on their approach to Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine as Zelensky makes a dramatic visit to the United States. I think we share the exact same vision, and that of a free and independent, prosperous and secure Ukraine. It's the vision, man. We both want this war to end, Biden told reporters in the White House's East Room. Zelensky, embarking on his first trip outside his homeland since it was invaded 300 days ago, that's a lie, arrived in Washington on Wednesday, where he met with Biden in the Oval Office for lengthy discussions about a path forward in Ukraine, and subsequently he held a joint news conference at the White House. The visit came as the Biden admin announced it's sending nearly $2 billion in additional security assistance to Ukraine, including a sophisticated new air defense system. At the start of the news conference, Biden relayed that he felt it was particularly meaningful to speak to Zelensky in person and look each other in the eye, man. The Ukrainian president's leadership, Biden said, has inspired the world. His money laundering has inspired the world, too. We understand in our bones that Ukraine's fight is part of something much bigger, man. Come on. Biden said Zelensky has shown his strong stand against aggression in the face of the imperial appetites of autocrats. No, Biden didn't say those words. And said the U.S. was standing alongside Ukraine in maintaining core principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity, man. During the news conference, Biden told CNN's Bill Mattingly that the missile system, called the Patriot system, is defensive, not escalatory. Zelensky said the system is something that will strengthen our air defense significantly. Every dollar of investment for the United States is going to be strengthening of global security, and I know that American leadership will be strong and play an important role in global scope. Zelensky added. He also suggested Ukraine would want more of the systems, which will put large amounts of dollars into the stock portfolios of senators and the Biden campaign, by the way. We've got some of the joint press conference here, about 30 seconds of this. Zelensky's joke at the press conference. After we get Patriot, we are going to signal that we want another Patriot. And whichever defense contractor made Patriot missile system started salivating at the bonuses that they're going to be able to give out to their CEOs. Let's listen.
Можу посилати меседжі президенту Байдену. Наприклад, якщо зараз не дуже серйозно, ви сказали, що буде після Петріотів. Після Петріотів ми ще раз дамо сигнал президенту Байдену, що ми ще хотіли би отримати Петріот. That is our life. We are in war. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. That is my appreciation. Можу посилати меседжі президенту Байдену.
Gagged in silence says, what's the difference between losing out 1 Patriot or 10 Patriots? They all get returned unused unless Putin warrants the Patriots be defensively used. So, yeah. How much does the Patriot defense missile system cost? A single Patriot battery costs over $1 billion, with $400 million for the system and $690 million for the missiles and the battery, according to the Center for Strategic and International Studies think tank. Right there, and that's sourced from Reuters. From ABC News, Zelensky's security in Washington being treated as mini-state visit, sources say. Well, I mean, somebody in the mainstream media actually has to have some sort of accuracy in this. From Pierre Thomas and Luke Barr. And yes, the joint conference is going on right now. This is live from ABC.
Proudly holding the American flag, the exchange of flags taking place. President Zelensky saying Ukraine will hold its lines, it will never surrender, that it was a great honor to speak
This
before the U.S.
flag was
Congress.
flown over the Capitol today in honor of the president's visit.
Thank you.
Thank-
I will take it.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi obviously explaining to him that that is the flag that flew over the Capitol today to mark this historic visit of a wartime leader. As we have been reporting here, the first time a wartime leader since Winston Churchill has addressed the U.S. Congress. He said, "We have defeated Russia in the battle of minds."
All right, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's trip to Washington is being treated as a mini-state visit, one with extraordinary security implications according to multiple sources familiar with the plans. Hundreds of law enforcement and intelligence officials have been activated, and the U.S. Secret Service will be the lead agency as he heads to the White House and speaks to Congress on Wednesday. Now again, none of this is anything new. This is what you do with any dignitary that's in our country. From the moment that he lands and walks down the stairs of the plane, he will have a Secret Service security detail, one official told ABC News. Again, standard practice. He will have that detail until he gets on the plane to leave, the official said. Excuse me. The Secret Service will provide the vehicles for his motorcade and will be assisted with the motorcade by Prince George's County Police and Washington, D.C. Metro Police. Zelensky will have his own Ukrainian security detail with him as well. Don Mihalik, the former U.S. Secret Service agent, told ABC News the Secret Service protects all foreign heads of state while on U.S. soil. Yes, we know. The Secret Service is responsible for the protection of all visiting foreign heads of state, he said. They will mobilize a multi-agency security umbrella to ensure his visit is kept safe. Security officials at the most senior levels of government are very concerned about the prospect of something happening during the visit when he returns home, domestically or abroad, one source told ABC News. Zelensky's trip to Capitol Hill will be similar to the State of the Union security preparations because of the high-level nature of the address, the official said. Being that they're at war with the Russians, not only are there threats potentially from Russian agents and Russian collaborators, but there will also be threats from those who oppose Ukraine's independence and other nations that might have vested interest in seeing that Ukraine is not successful, Mihalik, an ABC News contributor, said. Yeah, that's anywhere in the world. By the way, none of this is unique to the Ukraine. As much as everybody and their brothers trying to make this an entire Ukraine thing, none of this is unique to them. According to an email sent to staff at the Capitol obtained by ABC News, security measures will be significant. The email says only staff and members will be allowed in the House wing past a certain time. The Secret Service is also consulting with the Capitol Police, CIA, FBI, and other intelligence agencies about the security environment. Every Capitol Police officer will be on standby, according to one law enforcement official. We are very cognizant that Russia has assets in this country and might try to do something, one senior official said. We know what is at stake, and that is, of course, going back into the Cold War. Now, with Zelensky leaving Congress and everything being an act with this, I'm actually going to park this over back into my left screen and kind of be watching over my shoulder here, just in case something does pop off and somebody in a totally non-staged manner actually gets a shot off at him. So, well, we'll be watching for that. I'll be watching that out of the corner of my eye. In the same screen that I see the live chat, of course. Meanwhile, we will move on to the Jerusalem Post and a little bit of aftermath with this. Now, Jerusalem Post is not a green check verified outlet. So do keep that in mind as we read this, and some of this may be hyperbolic. But there are some significant concerns that come to this. Kremlin says no chance of peace with Kiev after Zelensky Washington trip. Coming to the Jerusalem Post via Reuters, so actually this is green check verified. Because they're doing a reprint of Reuters. I guess I didn't see the Reuters article for this. Go away, you. We have got no author given on this one. In a call with reporters, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that continued Western arms supplies to Ukraine will lead to a deepening of the conflict, something which could backfire on Kiev, he warned. The supply of weapons continues, and the range of supplied weapons is expanding. All of this, of course, leads to aggravation of conflict. This does not bode well for Ukraine, Peskov said. Zelensky was due to meet the U.S. President, Joe Biden, and congressional leaders on Wednesday in his first foreign trip since Moscow sent tens of thousands of troops into his country on February 24th. Asked whether Moscow had any expectations that something positive could come from Zelensky's trip, Peskov answered, "No." During his visit, the U.S. is also set to approve the delivery of advanced Patriot missile systems in Ukraine as part of the latest multi-billion-dollar package of military support for Kiev. And, I mean, why wouldn't? Why? Why would this why would Russia back down at something like this? That's my big question off of this. All of this seems like another push to go, hey, Russia, we're doing it. We're not going into the country, but we're making it harder for you. Don't you want to retaliate against us? Something is fishy here, and of course, Elaine and I both predicted at election time that this was going to lead into more wars across the world. And here we are sitting in one. Or on the precipice of one. Alright, let's move off of Ukraine. We've spent almost the entire episode talking about... Well, no, I guess we haven't spent the entire one. We talked about Slate, too. But let's talk about pork and more pork here from the Daily Wire. Pork, Parks, and Woke. All the fun features in the $1.7 trillion omnibus. From Daniel Chayton. And by the way, all of the people over the Daily Wire have not read this bill either. Critics are howling at spending perks and rules littered throughout the $1.7 trillion omnibus bill meant to fund the federal government for another fiscal year. The legislation was unveiled in the Senate early Tuesday and boasts $858 billion in defense funding, as well as $772.5 billion for non-defense discretionary programs. According to a summary from Time is of the essence, as funding expires Friday at midnight, leaving some lawmakers to grumble while poring over the legislation that is more than 4,000 pages long. Again, I urge you just to go to 4chan because I'm sure that they've got this entirely picked apart at this point. Somebody go ask Midget B if he can go find stuff on Poll for that, because I bet you he does. Dan Bishop shared a Twitter thread on what he dubbed some of the most egregious provisions of the bill. First on his list was a section outlining the requirement of more than $1.5 million geared towards border management requirements for U.S. Customs and Border Protection, including a ban on those funds to acquire, maintain, or extend border security technology and capabilities, except for technology and capabilities to improve Border Patrol processing. It expressly prohibits CBP funding from being used to improve border security. At a time when Republicans condemned the Biden admin for not doing more to secure the U.S.-Mexico border, Bishop pointed out that the bill allocates $410 million towards border security for Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Tunisia, and Oman. Detecting something fishy, Bishop noted that the word salmon appears 48 times in the bill, which included a $65 million commitment to Pacific coastal salmon recovery. He also found $3 million for bee-friendly highways. See, this is why our road funding needs to be local. This right here. Because the localities will know better. And again, I know that Ron would say no government roads whatsoever, but in a compromise situation, the localities will know better what to do for salmon recovery or bee-friendly highways. The Heritage Foundation released a list of its own focused on woke priorities in the omnibus. We talked about that the other day, so we're not going to rehash that thread. Conservative members of Congress are particularly rankled by some of the items that have to do with parks and trails. Again, another thing that could be better handled at the local level. In addition to the nearly $45 billion more aid to Ukraine and NATO allies, the omnibus seeks to fund the creation of a Ukrainian Independence Park. Another section would designate federal buildings in San Francisco as the Speaker Nancy Pelosi Federal Building. There's also a $3.6 million Transportation Department allotment for the Michelle Obama Trail in Georgia. Parks such as these had Rep. Mary Miller of Illinois saying she would vote against the radical Biden omnibus, and Andy Biggs assailing the reckless bill and asking followers, "Are you okay with all of this?" Scott Parkinson, Vice President of the Government Affairs at the Club for Growth, posted a list of fun earmarks breaking down many of the allotments by states and districts for lawmakers. For instance, he singled out the Honorable and Venerable Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez, D-Twitch, and other members of the squad, surmising these high-profile leftists will disregard an increase in defense spending because they each got millions in earmarks. Republican lawmakers were also subject to scrutiny, particularly those who are retiring. Senator Inhofe of Oklahoma got $511 million worth of earmarks in the omnibus, and Richard Shelby of Alabama, the vice chairman of the Committee on Appropriations, who had a major role in drafting the legislation, scored earmarks worth more than $656 million. According to Breitbart News, Shelby also gets an FBI training center renamed after him. In return for giving away 9 months of GOP leverage, with the disastrous omnibus, Richard Shelby gets an FBI building named after him. Nobody's a cheaper date than a Senate Republican, tweeted TPUSA founder Charlie Kirk. And for once I agree with the small-faced gentleman of TPUSA. In addition, the package would give $2.63 billion with a B for U.S. attorneys, including funding to further support prosecutions relating to January 6th on the Capitol and domestic terrorism cases, which means anybody who is a strong advocate for voting for MAGA Republicans or libertarians, according to a fact sheet reported by CNN. Also tacked into the omnibus bill are reforms to the Electoral Count Act because it's a must-pass, which former President Trump sought to use in disputing the results in the 2020 election. Retiring Senator Ben Sasse of Nebraska rebuked Senate Majority Leader Chuck U. Schumer, for not getting those changes passed separately. But he can't. He's got to hide it in a must-pass bill. So there's some fun stuff that's in this bill for you that must pass, and it's going to pass too, by the way. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, this is going to pass because they can't do anything short-term right now. In 3 weeks, a new Congress is going to be seated that doesn't care if the government shuts down. So they have to do everything they can to mitigate this, at least until the election year, which, by the way, this will go into 2024 if they go shut the government down in September of next year. This will bring this out into an election year, and who knows how long these House Republicans will keep the government shut down. But this is a must-pass. Otherwise, all of these little pet projects are just going to go out the window. And Mitch McConnell, the Turtle Man, is already trying to do everything he can to get this to come back out and pass. From the Blaze. America Last in Action, $1.7 trillion omnibus bill to fund border security for Arab nations. We talked just a bit about this in the last article, but we've got some specific ones here. The bill would allocate $44.9 billion in emergency assistance to Ukraine, we know, and NATO allies, $40.6 billion to disaster relief. As long as that's domestic, I am less concerned about disaster relief because, I mean, we just had a major earthquake and 2 major hurricanes in Florida. Again, something I would much prefer to be local, but disaster relief I have less of a problem with. I still have a problem with it, but less of a problem with. $47.5 billion to the National Institutes of Health, Fauci's pet project. $575 million for so-called family planning, reproductive health in areas where population growth threatens biodiversity, nearly $7 billion to combat HIV/AIDS in foreign nations, and hundreds of billions more to a variety of Democrat pet causes, including an LGBTQIRABTOXTYRMEIOU, sometimes Y, museum in New York City, and a federal building named after outgoing House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The authors of the bill also saw fit to once again bolster the borders of Middle Eastern nations with U.S. tax dollars. $410 million shall be available to reimburse Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, Tunisia, and Oman for enhanced border security. At least $150 million shall be for Jordan, a country whose human rights practices the U.S. State Department has called into question. So, border security for them, but not for us. And if you didn't think that was enough to try to spend us into oblivion, coming from Axios. Biden to refill U.S. oil reserves after reaching lowest level in decades. Splitting the production of oil and gasoline between what's going to go back into the reserves and what's going to go into your fuel tank. From Herb Scribner. The U.S. will soon purchase 3 million barrels of oil in order to replenish the country's dwindling strategic petroleum reserve, the Department of Energy said on Friday. That's only 3 days worth of what you took out! Are you serious right now? You were bragging about taking 1 million barrels a day out. And you're only going to purchase 3 million barrels to go back in? Are you... And Axios is calling this a win, folks. The Biden admin tapped the country's strategic petroleum reserve earlier this year to slow down rising gas prices. The Department of Energy said the new purchase is a good deal for American taxpayers since the purchasing price will be lower than the $96 per barrel average it was originally sold for. The move will also strengthen the energy security, the Department of Energy said. Since March of this year, President Biden has withdrawn 180 million barrels from the reserve. In early November, he shrank the country's oil reserve to its lowest level since 1984. Biden authorized the release of the oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help bring down the gas prices, which were soaring in early 2022. So enjoy that. That's 3 million barrels that can't go to your tank. While the energy prices are going to be rising again. Are you ready? This right there is probably incentive for me to go pick up that little house that I'm looking at that's close to work, so I don't have to make a commute again. Trump news. By the way, everything that we thought was going to happen with the release of the Trump tax returns, here it is. From ABC, Trump's tax returns show he paid no taxes in 2020, committee says. Now, one of the things to go with this is that the leftoids who are going to scream about this on Twitter are depending on ABC News to tell them this. Because none of them can read a tax return. They just say, ooh, evil orange man paid no taxes. It does look like he is paying on a loss. Or not paying on a loss, and this is coming from prior years when he did pay on a loss. But I also don't believe this is done quite as presented either. From Catherine Faulders, Lauren Peller, and Sue Rin Kim. The Democratic-controlled House Ways and Means Committee voted Tuesday to make public some documents related to former President Trump's tax returns, a move Trump has long since fought. No way! The tax returns were going to get leaked, just like I said they were going to. The committee met for several hours behind closed doors Tuesday afternoon and returned to vote 24-16 in open session to release the information related to Trump's tax returns from 2015 to 2020. It's not clear what documents will be released or ultimately included in the committee's report. All of them. But there will be 2 days to redact sensitive information before anything is made public. Chairman Richard Neal of Massachusetts said after the vote, "This is not being punitive, this is about being malicious." I'm sorry, this is not about being malicious. Yeah, it is. You have violated the Fourth and the Fifth Amendments to take a private citizen's tax returns, even for a time when he's in public office, and reveal them to the world. This is punitive, and it's unconstitutional. The tax returns will cover 6 years from 2015 to 2020, Neal later said. The committee is in the process of redacting personal information and will release the documents once that's finished, which Neal said could be in a few days. The 6 years of returns, including those of 8 affiliated businesses, committee reports, a report from the Joint Committee on Taxation, and IRS audit reports are expected to be released. According to a summary released by the committee, Trump and his wife, Melania, during the first year of the Trump presidential campaign in 2015, together reported $31.7 million in losses and reported $641,931 in net taxes. During the 2016 presidential election year, the two again reported losing $32.4 million in adjusted gross income and paid $750 in taxes. According to the committee, during Trump's first year in office, the couple reported losing $12.9 million and again paid $750 in taxes. In 2018, their adjusted gross income went up, with them bringing in $24.3 million, and they reportedly paid $999,456 in taxes. $1 million in taxes. In 2019, the two reported making $4.4 million and paid $133,445 in taxes. In 2020, they reported losing $4.8 million and Trump paid $0 in taxes. Neal told reporters that the committee found there was no ongoing audit of Trump's tax returns during his presidency until the committee requested them, despite an IRS requirement that tax returns filed by a sitting president or vice president are subject to audit. I questioned that myself. Neal said the audit only began in 2019 after he requested the returns and said the audits of the requested returns were never completed. The tax forms were never really audited, and only my sending a letter at one point prompted a rearview mirror response, Neal said. The committee earlier unanimously voted to have a transcript of the closed proceedings released when appropriate. No, that's not going to be a when appropriate. You are violating the Fourth and Fifth Amendments. When appropriate is right now. Before the committee, multiple boxes of Trump tax return related documents were seen being wheeled into the room. Yeah, because he owns several businesses, dozens of businesses I believe, or did at the time, which means that, it's going to take an army of lawyers to go through all this stuff. It marked the fourth time Trump had lost a high court appeal related to requests for his taxes. It's not immediately clear what significant new information might be in the committee's possession. Prosecutors in New York have already been able to access some of the data, but some of what the committee has could be more recent. Tuesday's vote came a day after the House January 6th committee voted to make criminal referrals about Trump to the Justice Department. This is illegal. And by the way, once again, as Grant said, that they've wasted our money to violate his privacy and show us nothing, which is also true, by the way, because all I see here is that there were taxes paid. It's not that he's just misering out his billions. He paid taxes. Even on years that he lost money, he paid taxes. But look at all these documents. For 6 years. What do you have for 6 years of taxes? And I'm asking both the live chat audience and the people who are going to be watching this later on, what do you have for 6 years of tax documents? Probably 40 pages tops for 6 years. Maybe 50. But if they can do it to him, they will do it to you. Some more foreign news. Biden, according to the Daily Mail, launches investigation into how 82% of components found in drones made in Iran, deployed by Russia, and downed in Ukraine are manufactured in the U.S. Oh, I wonder. Oh, I wonder how that could be. From Chris Jewers for Mail Online and AFP. Joe Biden has launched a task force to investigate how U.S. and Western components are ending up in Iranian-made drones being used to wreak havoc in Ukraine. Well, look no further than your own stock portfolio, Joe. We did it, Joe! Despite strict export controls in place to prevent Iran from obtaining such materials, evidence has emerged that Tehran is finding more than enough commercially available tech, including US-made microelectronics, to manufacture the drones. UK-based investigative organization Conflict Armament Research found last month that upon examining drones downed in Ukraine, 82% of their components were made by companies in the United States. In response, the White House has now launched an all-hands-on-deck task force involving agencies from across Washington, including the Departments of Defense, State, Justice, Commerce, and Treasury, according to sources cited by CNN. With the fighting in the east at a stalemate, Moscow has used hundreds of the drones to attack Ukraine's power infrastructure, hoping to leave people without electricity. As freezing weather sets in, the attacks have killed dozens of civilians. Iran has denied supplying Russia with the Iranian-built Shahed 136 suicide drones, despite the compelling evidence on the contrary. Yeah, I mean, we all know that that's happening. None of that's new. The explosive-laden drones are launched in groups, making them hard to defend against, and crash into their target. However, they can be brought down with small arms fire. Ukraine has successfully downed several of the drones. The devices that have been brought down were investigated by Conflict Armament Research and the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Processors built by Dallas-based technology company Texas Instruments, as well as an engine made by Austrian firm owned by Canada's Bombardier Recreational Products, were among components found in the drones investigations found. Both companies have released statements condemning the use of their components in the drones. Texas Instruments told CNN that it is not selling any products into Russia, Belarus, or Iran, and that it complies with the applicable laws and regulations in the countries where we operate and partners with law enforcement organizations as necessary and appropriate. It added, additionally, we do not support or condone the use of our products in applications they were not designed for. Yeah, I don't buy any of that for a moment. You got a bidder for a bulk purchase, you didn't do your homework, and now they're ending up in Tehran. And if you believe this, if you believe that they had no idea this was happening, again, I've got some oceanfront property here in Wisconsin that I would love to sell you right now. All right. The Twitter files are back. The FBI responds to the Twitter files disclosures say it didn't request any action on specific tweets. We investigated ourselves and we found that we did nothing wrong. From Jake Gibson and Adam Sabes. The FBI is responding to Twitter files revealing that the agency regularly contacted employees at the social media giant to notify them of accounts that may constitute violations of the company's terms of service. FBI officials told Fox News that the agency didn't ask Twitter employees to take action based on the information provided, and said the information was provided so that Twitter employees can make a determination on whether to take action. Yeah, okay. We're providing it so that they can take whatever action they deem appropriate under the terms of service to protect their platform and protect their customers, but we never direct or ask them to take this action, FBI officials said. Even with my 1,520 follower account on Twitter, I have my own FBI agent, and I know I do. which is why I got popped for telling Rather to go fornicate himself with an iron stick. Substack writer and journalist Matt Taibbi tweeted multiple internal files between Twitter workers and FBI employees as part of the 6th installment of the Twitter files. Yes, we know. And again, I point out that the FBI comes out and says, we investigated ourselves and found we did nothing wrong. No, we just suggested it to Twitter. We didn't tell them that they have to do so. And there's more from the New York Post. FBI blasts conspiracy theorists over Twitter files, claims to provide critical information to protect company. The FBI said on Wednesday that Revelations agents pressured Twitter to muzzle its own users for so-called misinformation and foreign influence, and falsely warned of hack and leak operations involving the first son Hunter Biden were just business as usual. The correspondence between the FBI and Twitter show nothing more than examples of our traditional, long-standing and ongoing federal government and private sector engagements, which involve numerous companies over multiple sectors and industries, the FBI told the Post in a statement in response to the latest jaw-dropping revelations from the Twitter files. As evidence in the correspondence, the Bureau went on, the FBI provides critical information to the private sector in an effort to allow them to protect themselves and their customers. I am going to pop this mix down a little bit. Just a little bit. There we go. I just kind of looked over and I saw that the background was getting into the yellow, and we never wanted to get into the yellow, because then I'm trying to yell over it. Let's see. As evidence in the correspondence, the Bureau went on, the FBI provides critical information to the private sector in an effort to allow them to protect themselves and their customers. The men and women of the FBI work every day to protect the American public, the statement concluded. It's so unfortunate that the conspiracy theorists and others are feeding the American public misinformation with the sole purpose of attempting to discredit the agency. Dude, you've done that yourself. You have done that yourself! Your hatred and your lust for power have driven them away. I'm gonna watch that movie, just for the hell, so I can listen to the Imperial March again. Got one from The Blaze. Twitter assisted in government PSYOP campaigns, new Twitter files reveal. Twitter employees assisted the Pentagon with covert psychological operations by helping to push propaganda through a network of Twitter accounts in different languages, revealed by investigative journalist Li Fang. How Twitter quietly aided the Pentagon's covert online PSYOP campaign, Fang writes, revealing documents obtained from Twitter's internal communications dubbed the Twitter Files. The files reveal that in 2017, CENTCOM sent Twitter a list of 52 Arab language accounts that the military used to amplify certain messages. A government official asked for priority service for 6 of the accounts, verification for 1, and a special whitelist abilities for the other. Our Special Operations Command guys mentioned they'd love to be able to come up and meet for a face-to-face, the email also says. The same day, Twitter applied a special whitelist tag for acts that acts similarly to verification without a blue checkmark, meaning it provides exemption from spam and abuse flagging and is more likely to be seen or trend. The Arab language accounts are fairly cut and dried. As far as messaging goes, they promoted U.S. messaging in the Middle East on topics such as the Yemen conflict, anti-Iranian messages, and how accurate drone strikes have been, claiming to kill only the intended terrorist target. In May of 2020, a Twitter employee seemingly emailed the Department of Justice proactively, providing a list of accounts Twitter has discovered along with a list that had been provided. The detected accounts tweeted in Russian and Arabic similarly to the aforementioned, yet were not disclosed to Twitter for having government ties. Many of these accounts continued operations well into May of 2022, according to Fang, meaning Twitter allowed their accounts to operate under shadowy pretenses for at least 2 years in some cases. In August 2022, a Stanford Internet Observatory report discovered several of these accounts, finding that a network across social media platforms was using deepfake images and memes against U.S. foreign adversaries to promote pro-American messages. An interconnected web of accounts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and 5 other social media platforms have used deceptive tactics to promote pro-Western narratives in the Middle East and Central Asia, the report reads. Your tax dollars at work, going to destabilize the Middle East. Aren't you excited? We are running up on the clock here. Want to see heads roll, AG Garland, FBI's raid, face likely Twitter file subpoena. Well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? From Caitlin Dornbos and Bruce Golding. Republican lawmakers are poised to slap top Justice Department officials with subpoenas to see heads roll over Elon's Twitter files, revelations about the FBI's efforts to suppress free speech on social media. Well, the narrative's already out there, so every leftoid who hasn't been taken on board with this, which is probably about 75% of them, is now fed the instructions to say, this is just a conspiracy theory. There's nothing actually going on here. Elon's a conspiracy theorist. Mesa's statement marked a doubling down on her earlier vow that there will be subpoenas flying after the GOP regains control of the House. I really want to know what the government agents and agencies were censoring the free speech of Americans, Mace, a member of the House Oversight Committee, said on Fox News on Sunday night with Trey Gowdy. I want to see heads roll. I want to see people fired for what they've done. Well, that's very ambitious, Nancy, but I'm going to say that that's probably not going to happen. On Monday, Kevin McCarthy, who's seeking to become the next speaker, repeated his recent pledge that subpoenas would be issued against the 51 former U.S. intelligence officials who signed a controversial open letter that said the post-October 14, 2020 scoop about Hunter Biden's laptop has the classic earmarks of Russian information operation. Who asked him to sign this letter? Do they have security clearances? McCarthy said during an appearance on Fox Business Network's Mornings with Maria. McCarthy declined to answer directly when host Barty Romo asked if U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray would also be slapped with subpoenas, but he all but predicted that they would. You know what's funny? They're probably going to ignore the subpoenas, and they'll probably get praise for doing so. Elon Musk, of course, supporting this here from Fox Business. Elon supports a congressional investigation after Twitter files revelations. From Paul Best. Elon signaled support on Tuesday for a congressional investigation into the alleged censorship efforts by the FBI and larger intelligence community after the latest batch of the Twitter files was released. Independent writer Michael Schellenberger used internal Twitter communications and public documents to argue that there was an organized effort by representatives of the intelligence community targeting news and other social media companies to discredit leaked information about the Hunter Biden before and after the New York Post published a story in October about his laptop. October 14th, 2020, the New York Post runs this explosive story revealing the business dealings of President Biden's son, Hunter. In fact, every single fact in it was accurate, Schellenberger tweeted on Monday, and yet within hours, Twitter and other social media companies censored the New York Post article, preventing it from spreading, and more importantly, undermining its credibility in the minds of many Americans. So, here's the thing. I support an investigation as well. And what we're seeing from this, I mean, this is... I know our friends on the left like to throw that term fascism around, even though they don't know what it means. But this is outright fascism. That's what this is fascism. The government co-opting private industries to do things that they can't do while restrained by their government documents. A partnership with the private and the public to hold down the rights of the people. And again, you don't have to be on Twitter. You can be on any number of other platforms, or you can be on none at all. But those of us who do use it as a de facto public square so we can argue out ideas and compromises with like-minded and non-like-minded people alike. You know, on Facebook, you choose who your friends are, and those are typically the only people who can see your posts or react with your posts. So you do wind yourself up in an echo chamber. Instagram is a little bit more open, but that's comments on pictures and not much else off of this. Twitter is one of the only real places with an open and free dialogue, where people who disagree have as much access to you as people who do agree with you. Under most circumstances, of course. Our friends to the left love to use that block button as much as they can, and some of our friends to the right do that too. But it's, for the most part, the most open platform where you have the chance to interact with somebody who doesn't agree with you. And the government is using their tendrils and their abilities to try to suppress some of this. And I'd like to know why as well. We've got some more Elon news here. We're going to watch a video of this one here. Elon does say he will step down as a Twitter CEO once he finds a replacement. So let's listen to what CNN has to say, and then we'll read a little bit of the article here, but let's get this loaded up here.
Twitter users have voted for Elon Musk to step down as head of the company. Now, in a poll, Musk asked users if he should step down. More than 17 million users voted. 57% said, yeah, kick rocks. 43% said, no, you should stay. Musk said he would abide by the results, but a day later, he seemed to agree with one user who suggested that only paying subscribers should get to vote on Twitter's policies. In response, Musk tweeted, good point. Twitter will make that change. CNN media analyst and Axios media reporter Sarah Fisher joins him now. What is going on here? First, he says, yeah, I want to know what you think, and I'll abide by it. And now he's switching it. And he does this by a poll, this Vox Populi approach. What do you see happening here?
Yeah, that's a great question, Victor. I think he always planned to step down as CEO. It's something he communicated to investors when he was raising money. It's something that he communicated in court when Tesla investors were complaining that he wasn't paying enough attention to that company. But what he did was he staged this poll sort of as a little bit of a gimmick to see what people think, if they think he's doing a good job. I think the search was already happening for a new CEO. And the only reason we haven't heard from Elon Musk yet is because he's just waiting to figure out the right person, the right successor, before he officially steps down.
Is there an obvious short list?
You know, it's funny, there isn't. And that's because when Elon Musk came in the early November to sort of take over the company, doing all of those layoffs, he brought with him a pack of people that he knows and trusts from Silicon Valley, people that he's worked with at SpaceX, former Twitter folks, etc. Sources have told us that some of them are no longer involved. And so that list is getting even smaller of the people who would potentially be named CEO. In addition to that, some of the Elon Musk insiders, you think about someone like David Sachs, has communicated that they don't want to work for Twitter full time. They already have full-time jobs at other companies. So it's unclear who he's going to pick. But what we do know, Victor, is that Elon Musk will remain the majority shareholder of this company. He remains in charge even if he's not CEO. And so it's unclear how much power that new CEO will really have.
So Tesla has been downgraded on Wall Street exclusively because of what's going on over at Twitter. We've talked about, when you were here in studio last, about the financial element and people who are saying you're spending too much time there, you should be taking care of this baby here. What's the significance of this downgrade?
Well, it's been a rocky year for Tesla, in part because all of the uncertainty around Elon Musk's ownership is making investors nervous. And in addition to that, Elon Musk keeps pulling billions of dollars of shares out of Tesla, which is never a good sign if you're an investor about the CEO's commitment to that company. I think ultimately Tesla's results will speak for themselves, especially once Elon Musk gets a new CEO in. But what it does do is it creates uncertainty about the long-term leadership future of Tesla. If Elon Musk continues to get himself in these tangles, on Twitter with dealing with, content moderation and hassling people, Could he eventually, get himself into a regulatory situation that could threaten his leadership on Tesla?
All right, so that's what they have to say about that, and I think that's pretty much what's going to be in the article here as well. What's going on with this? Part of doing this now at night instead of doing this during the day like I used to do is the fact that I do get influence from other creators at this point. Something I never used to be able to do because basically I was rolling out of bed, setting up Contemporary, and then doing so when I was in the morning. But I have had influence with this. I don't listen to a lot of political news anymore, but I like Styx. I like his analysis of things, and I'm right in with the clankers on this one. I do think that he did always plan on stepping down from the beginning, as CNN said. He really did. But right now, and by doing this by poll too, he gave the illusion to his detractors, the people who have been in the anti-Elon cult from the beginning, that they actually did this. Hey, we got this poll to go the way that we wanted to, and we fired Elon Musk. When in reality, again, he basically, when he started out, he didn't know anybody that he could trust to run the company, so he started out running it himself just to get things up and off the ground. But he had always talked about stepping back away from it and letting somebody else do it. He's still going to own it, obviously. He's just not going to be making the day-to-day decisions. His time is too important for deciding office sizes and office layouts and payroll and things like that. All the things that he has to do now as CEO, especially running on a skeleton crew like he is. He wants somebody else to go back out and do that. And as long as we're talking about what the clankers have to say about this, I do also want to come out and say that I think that they're absolutely right on this as well. I think Styx is right that it should be Tom from MySpace. I think he'd be the ideal candidate for that. He was everybody's friend for a very long time. He's got that millennial appeal. He ran a successful company until Facebook came back in and displaced it completely. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to basically go out and make the things that people want. Hey, we'll let you come back out, see everybody's posts, and you get to put a song on your profile. It's simple. It's easy. And he'll still be Elon's yes man, regardless. From Fox Business, Elon considering possible new CEO, including pals from PayPal. From Charlie Gasparino. The ever unpredictable Elon is taking an unusually measured approach to selecting a possible new CEO. From his latest acquisition, the social media platform Twitter, he is said to be considering potential candidates from the so-called PayPal mafia, including tech investor Joe Lonsdale, Fox Business has learned. Lonsdale, who runs the investment firm 8VC and co-founded the software company Palantir, has been a vocal supporter of Musk's approach to changing Twitter to include a more diverse voices outside the progressive Silicon Valley ecosystem. And to end what some critics say is censorship by previous management, he and Musk worked together at PayPal, the digital payment platform Musk helped to create before he became the head of Tesla, the world's top electric car manufacturer. If I were to guess, it would be Joe Lonsdale, who he wants to work or someone from the PayPal mafia, said one Wall Street CEO who regularly speaks with Musk. Most business leaders would not want to work for Elon. His friends from PayPal know him well and possibly understand him. Musk, among the top 3 richest people in the world, acquired Twitter in October after a months-long battle with management, where he tried to negate his initial $44 billion offer during a correction in the markets and pay a lower price, Fox Business has reported. He was forced to go through with the deal at its initial terms amid a heated battle with former Twitter management in Delaware's Chancery Court. Again, I don't know that a PayPal person would be the best person for this, but I do think that he knew that he was going. I think that he looked at this and said, I can get this, I can get some of the changes started that I want, and then I can go put a yes man in here and be it. And I do think it should be Tom. I really do. All right, we'll do some border stuff here, and then we'll head out here. I'm going to save, by the way, these Warnock ones Raphael Warnock, election denier from Brad Raffensperger, and then his response to this for tomorrow, because I do want to spend some time with this, and we are up on the clock. I spent a lot more time talking about Zelensky than I thought I was going to, plus the Slate article at the top. And these I think are interesting, but we'll do some border stuff here, and I think we'll head out of here for the day with that. Cinema looks to lead bipartisan border trip to see a broken system, from Julia Shapiro. And see, the problem with that is a lot of people, like Kamala, like Biden, and like the people who swear that the border's secure, there's nothing to worry about, just want to head in the sand on this one, and they don't want to go on a trip like this. They don't want to see any of this, because then they can continue to tell their constituents, no, everything is fine. But let's read here from Julia Shapiro. Kyrsten Sinema plans to lead a bipartisan group of senators on a trip to the U.S.-Mexico border next Congress to see the country's broken immigration system up close. Part of the problem is that many in Washington are taking the time to really see our border up close, Sinema said in a floor speech on Tuesday. Without seeing it for all its diversity and its challenge, it can be easy to rely on the partisan talking points instead of focusing on the meaningful, realistic solutions. Sinema said that she and Tom Tillis plan to convene a bipartisan group of senators in January who are willing and committed to get something done on immigration and organize a trip to the border. We're going to see what Arizonans see every day, because a crisis this big should not be and cannot be ignored, she added. Sinema's calls for bipartisan attention to immigration come in the wake of her and Tillis' unsuccessful attempt to include protections for Dreamers, adults who are in the country illegally because they were brought to the U.S. as children, in the federal government's $1.7 trillion spending package. Which, again, I mean, I've made my thoughts on DACA very, very clear at this point. I think it is the cruelest program in U.S. history. Not because I think that everybody should go off and be deported. I do think it should be an individual basis thing, and we should get enough judges up there that we can do it on an individual basis. My problem with it is that everybody in the DACA program knows, again, and I know I'm going over this, and I said that I wasn't going to go over this, everybody in the DACA program knows that they are a political pawn. They know it point blank well, and they cannot plan for the future more than 2 years out, because the next time there's a Congress coming up, that they're the political pawn. Oh, this congressperson wants to end DACA and deport you, deport your friends, deport these people. They're so cruel, they're so this. So they can never give amnesty to these people or find a long-term solution to it. They continue to have the short-term solution so they can continue to make it a perennial election issue. Soapbox over. Oh wait, no, it's not soapbox over, because this is my show. This is my soapbox. But that's soapbox over. I'm telling you right now, just deporting all the DACA people would be more compassionate than making them wonder what's going to happen to them every other year, like they do now. At least they'd know. But as far as what Sinema's doing here, again, as I mentioned, the people who think that this is all wonderful, fine, and good are going to have their head in the sand. They don't want to be anywhere near the border, because they don't want to see that it's bad. And they know that it's bad. They know that the reports that they keep getting from the big news sites are accurate. They know it full well. They don't want to see it, because then they can go back and say, no, everything's fine. We've never seen anything bad happen with that. One thing I do want to point out, interestingly, with Sinema now being independent, with her being a Democrat, and with her history with the Green, as well as more left-leaning and communist parties and communist affiliations throughout her life and career in public service, is the fact that, like pre-Democrat Party Bernie Sanders, Kyrsten Sinema, as a Green Party, as a communist, would be more interested in a closed border system, because you can't plan an economy when you have a variable as big as the southern border. And communist countries do tend to be very close borders in both directions. Nobody in, nobody out. Nobody emigrates out, nobody comes in. they do need to know who's all going to be on their payrolls, who's all going to be getting the money from their overly inflated currency, and who's going to be the cannon fodder and the factory fodder and the warm bodies to throw out the problem. You can't do that when you've got millions of people crossing in every day. So people who say that this means that Kyrsten Sinema is ultra uber right wing are delusional, because this means no such thing for Kyrsten Sinema. She's not uber mensch ultra right wing because she wants to close off the border. In fact, this may also ingratiate her more to the communistic side of her far left origins, even though they don't like her now because they think she's some right wing nutjob who doesn't want to end the filibuster. All right. And we're actually out of time at that point. So we will finish off with something that restores my faith in humanity, something I am thankful for, and head out of here for the day. And, well, because it's a new thing, I do have to come out and say that it's the move. So, as most of you know from looking back here and seeing the different background behind me, and even seeing the moving boxes that are still behind me here, which I think over the weekend, if I wind up not traveling for the holiday, I'm going to take this desk and move it over. There's basically an alcove off the kitchen. This is a tiny little place, but basically 8 feet over there, there's an alcove off the kitchen where I kind of want to put this. That's where I wanted to have it originally, and I think I'm just going to put a rug down in front of the door because the computer's got to be hardwired. But I'm going to move everything over there, see if we can take up and take down some of the echo because of the fact that we'll be over there. I don't think it's going to happen. There's no carpeting anywhere in this place. But hopefully take up some of the echo and hopefully free up a little bit of space in here as well as getting a more defined set. And maybe even be able to get some decorations in behind me. But where I'm going with this and when I talk about the move is the fact that, I do have to say that it's a little bit interesting to me that it seems that I am running the show again at my new job. I was talking to a couple friends about that last night, which is weird to me, which it always happens, but it happens slowly in increments. It kind of was just foisted on me at this point. I'm not a manager. It would be almost impossible for me to do the show as a manager because you're on call pretty much 24/7 at that point. But it does seem like I'm calling a lot of the shots again. But it does talk to leadership and experience. But what I'm really thankful for, what really restores my faith in my life and my humanity is the opportunities that this empowers to me. Now, with the big storm that we talked about in the beginning of the show coming into the Midwest, and again, it doesn't look like, the weather reports have been so varied. We've gone as much as 14 inches of snow, all the way down to as low as a half an inch of snow for the area that I live in now. But even so, even if it just snows through tomorrow and Friday, which I think is what it's going to do, the roads will be cleared for the most part on Saturday, and I could still go back and make a run off to my parents. That would not be an option for me with the weather that's coming through for Christmas if I still lived in my old place. One of the things that I like about being here is that, I'm actually already starting to feel like there's community here. What I'm getting just at work and then seeing some of the things around, like stopping at the same regular quick trips and getting to know some of the people there is feeling a sense of neighborliness and community in here right now. I'm meeting some of the neighbors here. I'm starting to make friends in the area, which is interesting. I didn't have this where I used to live. And I will say that now that I'm 3 weeks in, I can say that this was obvious. This was a very positive move for me personally. Financially, it's been a little bit of a struggle. I'm not going to lie. Going from having a weekly paycheck to a bi-weekly paycheck was not something I was prepared for by any stretch of the imagination. And the fights with the former landlord have just never stopped. But overall, just on the mental health aspect, I can say that this was a positive move. I do wish that we could get myself moved back to a mid-shift so I could continue to do contemporary, but we had to make some sacrifices because otherwise, it was spinning wheels. There was no room for home ownership where I used to live. There was no community. There was nothing that I could sit back and do. And now there is. Now I feel a little bit more complete, a little bit more whole. And there are some people that I might try to convince to get out of my old area and come up here as well, because it does seem a lot friendlier than where we were. And I think that there are a couple people that I know down there that deserve much better than what they have down there right now. And they're starting, even though they're both from there, I can see where they're starting to lose some community as well. But that's a discussion for off air for some of these people here. But I'm very thankful. I'm thankful that I remembered what it's like over on this side of the state, because as much of a hurry as I was to get out of here, I maybe lost something. And I did have enough experience, knowledge, and charisma to come back out and make my way very quickly where I live. Things that I don't think that I had when I left. I am still thankful for the fact that I lived away from here for a little while and was able to pick some of that up. And learn some of that and retap and discover some of that. But mostly I am thankful for the move. And with that, we are done. Where's the outro music? All right, so with that, we are going to sign out for the night here. Thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, everybody who's going to be watching this back on the replay, coming up here in the near future. We'll be back here tomorrow, 6 p.m. And if you are watching on the replay, do feel free to come and join us at 6 p.m. Central every weekday as we come and do this live. I don't read chat very much. I do a little bit more now that, I don't have a strict, I've got to get done with this and get out like I had when I was in the morning slot because I had to go to work. But I do keep track of who chats in the live chat, and I say thank you to you at the end of the week. I do read all of your live chats at the end of the show, even stuff that I missed while I was on air, so come back in and join us. Get your name in here, get a few friends in here, have a discussion with your friends as well as we go. We would love to see you here. We've got a good community here. Some of them are starting to get used to the 6 p.m. time slot, so definitely looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing more of you here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Looking forward to it always, and we will see you then. Stick around on Twitch, and we will go rating. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.